Okay. Awesome. It's nice to meet you in person. Like,
It's nice to meet
one.
you too. We
Yeah.
met at one of the events, right?
I think, yeah, we were at the Women Solopreneur alignable call. I'm still
Yes.
getting used to alignable as my first like month actively being present. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're
I
good.
uh,
There you
I
are.
had to plug my computer in. I had 38% left, so I don't know what happened. Anyway,
Yeah, they start slowing down at a certain like percentage. They're like, I need some juice, thank you.
yeah, really, it must have been because it came onto Zoom and it went, nah, we're not doing that. Anyway, sorry
You're
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, can you I mean I saw a little bit of what you do, but I don't know quite you help people with podcasts, is that right?
Yes, I help people launch their podcast in 30 days or less. I help everyone, but I have a specific passion for helping people, BIPOC humans, so Black, Indigenous, people of color, um, and with their business or their brand podcast.
Mm.
And yeah, I've been a podcaster for the last 5 years, launched a lot of shows and a lot of podcasts. So now I'm helping people do the same, like to preserve their stories and share their voices and you know
Yeah.
um some people's histories have been erased, and imagine if there were video podcasts, audio podcasts where you could have preserved your story, your culture, your heritage, and pass that down. So yeah, I'm just trying to help people record their stories. That's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that it? Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
podcast, so like a personal podcast or something or
be a personal one, it could be a business one. Like in my instance, no one in my family that was close enough to me ever tried to start a business, right? So even like I just think there's so much value in recording the stories, whether it's your business, your brand, or your personal podcast.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. And how'd you get into podcasting?
It's so funny. So my background's communication, social media, mass media from college. That was my studies. And I always wanted to do some sort of broadcast or journalism, but I just didn't end up going that route. I ended up in HR and learning and development and creating courses and programs and things like that for executives at tech companies. And I've always had a passion for podcasting. And during the pandemic, I kind of started a passion project of doing panels and shows. And then that's when I just really decided I want to do a podcast now. And yeah, it was
Hmm.
history from there. Yeah.
All right. Wow. Okay. And when you did your podcast, what did you do it on?
My first podcast was the Miseducation of Masculinity. So I would talk to different men about their stories, their experiences, because social media had been really toxic around masculinity, and the conversations were not with real people, in my opinion. So I really wanted to do some podcasts that highlighted, like really good men, but like they just had stuff that happened or places where they were misunderstood. And I even interviewed like allies of women. So that was like my very first. That was my passion project, my first podcast. Yeah.
Wow, that would be a really good addition to a dating site, huh?
Pretty much, yeah. All of my podcasts were relationship until now. So I mean, they're now more friendship based, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was the premise was relationship coaching at the time. I didn't know starting all those podcasts was really me like gearing up to like teach other people how to podcast. So end, but yeah, it was interesting how all of that kind of came together. So
Yeah.
um yeah, it's just it's funny like how the journey, like you think you're gonna do this one thing, but then like life is like, no, you need to be doing X or um,
Yes, I do. Yeah, yeah.
so tell me about you and like what your business is around.
Yeah, I've been a business coach since 2007. I initially worked with a man named Chet Holmes, who wrote the book The Ultimate Sales Machine, and it was really well done, really well organized and whatnot. And then he eventually teamed with Tony Robbins. You might have heard of him.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, some people haven't. It blew my mind. I had a number of people who were like, "Oh, I don't know who that is." I'm like, really?
I've been living under a rock.
All right.
Yeah.
So I was independent coaches for both those men, and so I had great experience, great training, great great clients and whatnot that came through them. And then Chet passed away, and Tony decided that he didn't want to keep the company because Chet's daughter took it over, and she was just in her early 20s and didn't have the longevity that her dad did in business. So the company kind of went away for a few years. In the meantime, I went off on my own with my ex, and we just continued business coaching all these years, and had all kinds of clients. I mean, from all kinds of industries, which is really great, like health, and mostly service based, I would say. Out of everything, even health is service based, right? So and mostly with business owners, because I really like working with business owners because they they run the companies, and when you can get the business owners uh, to fine tune their foundations, fine tune the communications, fine tune their uh, connection with themselves, with their staff, and with their clients, then things start growing.
I love
So
that.
it's been a wonderful. I love business coaching. I just because it's just such a win-win experience.
It is.
So.
So what was the transition like during the pandemic for you? Was there any adjustments that y'all had to make?
No, actually, it was great.
Oh,
I actually had just left, well, just gotten a divorce with my ex. Believe it or not, right around that time, like right at that time, which is like, but went to work with uh, another partner, and so it worked out great for me. I had a lot of clients, a lot of people were looking for, they didn't know how to use Zoom at that time, believe it or not.
that's very true. I forgot about those days.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I had to teach them how to use Zoom for one, and then how to connect with clients on Zoom. I mean, we take it for granted today, but that was like new territory in 2020. And it's
So,
only been 3 years.
so
But
true.
yeah, yeah. So that went really well. I would say 99.9% of my clients, there's really only one client I went to visit out of all those years, have been on the phone originally and then on Zoom. So
Wow.
it didn't affect me. And as a matter of fact, it made my business better.
That part, because you were able to probably like do more too, right? I would imagine.
Well, I think there were a lot of people who are trying to figure out, what do I do from here? Like if my business is X and that's not going to work in the digital world, what do I do then? And
Yeah.
so we had to really, it was a great experience for me because I just had to help them to make those shifts, and whether those shifts were uh, something different, or those shifts were making some shifts to online in their current business. It was a journey.
That's incredible. Yeah. Getting people to flex that muscle of like expanding or pivoting or
Yeah.
problem solving. That's awesome. That sounds like it
Yeah,
was. I
yeah, it
mean,
was a lot of fun.
yeah.
It was, yeah, I mean, it was intense, but a lot of fun at the same time, you know.
Yeah.
So
So what type of people and like who, like you said, business owners, are there any like specific industries or is it just across the board?
yeah, you know, I've worked with a lot of different industries. I would say that if anything, they're more service based. So I mean, my background actually is in direct mail.
Mm,
So, I mean, I don't know if you got catalogs or not. Well, think LL Bean, right? Is still around. So that kind of business. Um, so for many years. And I got to do a lot of different things in the businesses I worked for. So I understood all the different pieces of the business and I was able to help my clients to grow their businesses by understanding all the details.
that's awesome. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really, I don't know, sometimes, like you said, people get into something like not expecting it. Like
Yeah.
I have an MBA, so I expected to go into business, but I didn't really expect to go into business to coach clients. That didn't wasn't a thought in my mind at the time.
Hmm.
So yeah, it turned out to be a surprise and a good one too. And then the other thing that I do is I work in spirituality in my business. You know, obviously we all, as we heard on that particular um, webinar, you know, a lot of people went through a lot of pain and anguish to get to where they're at. You know, there was a lot of hurt there, and then there was a lot of healing that had happened to a lot of those people as well. So it's really great. So for me as well, same thing. I went through a spiritual awakening, so to speak. I'd already been open to all of it for many years. Um, but but I had an energy healer approach me, and it's been the best experience of my life, no questions, and trained under her as well. So I do my business coaching with helping people connect to themselves, the business owners generally, connect first to themselves, and then connect to their staff and connect to their clients and whatnot. So that's a big part of what I do as well.
That I love that a lot, actually. That resonates.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say, for like someone who is a business owner, like how could they keep their spirituality at the forefront when, dealing with clients? And the reason why I'm asking, I'll give, I guess, a little bit more context. It,
Mm,
sometimes I find that people say they operate from a spiritual based business,
absolutely.
but the practices don't necessarily align
Mhm.
because just they have to pivot or do certain things. So how can somebody kind of keep their spirituality at the forefront but still keep the business moving forward?
That's a great question. And this is kind of like I call this more the divine feminine energy that we all have, right? Everybody has masculine and feminine energies. Obviously, the men have more masculine than feminine and whatnot, but we all have both. And internally and energetically, they should be balanced. And for most people today, at least in the United States, we are in a very male dominated business world. And so we've learned how to become very male oriented and to think and act in a male way during that time. So what I teach, and I actually have a women's group that's starting up this next month, which I call Empress Equilibrium. And that is teaching right now women, but I'm going to include men in a different group. I may do that, whatever. But it's coming. Anyway, right now teaching women how to stand in their power as a woman, as in their divine feminine. And what does that mean? What are all the aspects behind that? So standing in your power is one thing, but being aware of that
Mm,
and being able to connect with other people is is something most people don't know. And a lot of and the quick and dirty answer to your question is holding your power.
mm,
It's a much longer conversation when it becomes, well, how do you hold your power?
mm.
What do you do? What do you say? those types of things when somebody is either attacking you or something where you're not getting along with your clients, or it's business versus personal. Those types of questions come up, right? Just like what you were asking, I think.
Is there like a number one like basic principle of holding your power that you would like say like if you do nothing else when holding your power, do this?
Yes, that is learning to love yourself first. In true, not egotistically or anything like that, but true looking at yourself and loving yourself first. And
Yes.
that takes time.
Yeah.
That is not something that somebody, oh, I love myself. I'm all done. Nope.
Yeah. I mean, that's because it requires you to hold space for the dark and the light at the same time, which is
Yes.
tricky for people. It's like embracing just all of it, all of it, because it all makes us us.
Yeah, it's actually learning also how to stay neutral, and also to so this is something I've trained on at length. So standing neutral, standing and holding to what you think feel is right, intuitively feel is right. It doesn't mean coming back with anger, because that's just reacting. It means basically holding space for that person uh, in their emotional element, and understanding that they are not in their power when they get upset or when they attack or anything like that. They're not in their power. And so when you can stand back and start looking at it objectively, then you start to understand people a lot better and not take it personally.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
a little bit longer answer, but that takes practice. It takes really looking inside of each person, and it starts with, like I said, loving yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I really resonate with that, with what you said earlier about holding not trying to do things in a masculine kind of dominated way when it comes to work. And man, that is so that's something I've definitely struggled with, and like grinding and burning the midnight oil, like burning the candle on both ends, and
Mm-hmm.
for help in my business, like it's
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I could send you a link if you're interested. You can take a look at it. I have a partner of mine. She also studied with me, and she's going to be doing a little bit more of the energy healing side. Like I'll do more a little bit more of the business side, because this is the way we're just working it for now. And so there'll be energy healing involved in this group as well.
oh, I love that.
Hmm.
Well, I really liked our conversation, and I was
Yep.
wondering if you'd be open to this. This just hear me out, and you can say yes or no. But I host right now. My podcast is transitioning into a season two. But before season two launches, I've been doing kind of behind the scenes about like prepping the podcast, about the conversations I have as I'm like building it up. And I feel like this conversation actually really resonates and relates to like some of the stuff that I will be talking about in the actual season two. So I would love to feature it as a behind the scenes episode, and we can plug your link in for your women's group for next month, because it'll come out pretty soon, like pretty early. It'll come out in the first week of March or second week of March.
Okay, great, perfect. Awesome. I would love that.
Yeah. Okay. Yay. Awesome. Yeah. So
All
hit me up.
right.
But yeah, it's all behind the scenes, so it kind of just goes out as is. Even this part right now that people are hearing, it will go out as is. Um, Maybe I should also have you. Well, you talked about your background, but it's Claudia Brown for people who are listening.
Yes,
You can
my name is
follow her
Claudia
first.
Brown.
I know who I'm talking to. They don't know who I'm talking to. So I'm talking to Claudia Brown.
Yeah, my business name is Haniel Consulting, and that Haniel is actually an archangel.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's beautiful. I love
Mhm.
Well, thank you for sharing. I'm gonna stop recording now.
Well, thank you for having